Part 1. The stars were silent, but the laughter wasn't. It echoed through the grand hall of the Krylos Confederacy's diplomatic chamber, a cold and biting sound that made Daniel Harper's jaw tighten. He stood tall, wearing his navy blue uniform with pride, but inside he felt like a child being scolded for something he didn't do. Around him, the crew of the Eclipse shifted uncomfortably. They were supposed to represent humanity here, to show the galaxy what Earth had achieved. Instead, they were being mocked at. The Krylos ambassador, a towering alien with shimmering blue skin and 6 glowing eyes, leaned forward on his podium. His voice was deep and rich, almost musical, but every word dripped with disdain. "Your ships," he said, pointing one long finger at a holographic display of human vessels floating above the center of the room, "are primitive. Your technology is outdated. You are not ready to join the Interstellar Council." A ripple of chuckles spread among the other ambassadors seated around the circular table. Some covered their mouths with clawed hands or tentacles, while others openly guffawed. Even the translator devices seemed to struggle to convey the depth of their amusement. To them, humanity was nothing more than an amusing curiosity, a species that had barely crawled out of its own solar system. Beside Daniel, Lieutenant Claire Bennett clenched her fist so tightly her knuckles turned white. She wanted to say something, anything to defend her people, but protocol forbade it. This was Daniel's moment, and all eyes were on him. Still, she couldn't stop herself from muttering under her breath, "They don't know us." Daniel heard her and gave her a quick glance. Her anger mirrored his own, but he forced himself to remain calm. He took a step forward, addressing the assembly. "With respect, Ambassador Zorin," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. "Humanity has achieved remarkable progress in a short time. We've developed faster-than-light travel, established colonies on Mars, and even begun exploring beyond our system. Yes, we may lack the centuries of experience some of your civilizations possess, but we learn quickly." Zorin tilted his head, studying Daniel as if he were observing an insect. Then, without warning, he burst into laughter again, louder this time. The other ambassadors joined in, their mirth filling the chamber like a tidal wave. One of them, a reptilian creature with scales that gleamed like polished emerald, slapped the table with a clawed hand. "Progress?" he sneered. "You call those tin cans progress? My children could build better toys." The laughter grew louder, drowning out anything else Daniel might have said. He stepped back, his face burning with shame. There was no point arguing further. These beings weren't interested in understanding humanity. They only saw weakness. Weakness to exploit, ridicule, or ignore. Back aboard the Eclipse, the mood was somber. The ship drifted silently through space, its sleek hull reflecting the faint light of a distant star. Inside the briefing room, Daniel paced back and forth, his boots clicking against the metal floor. His officers sat around the table, their expressions ranging from frustration to quiet despair. "They dismissed us," Daniel said finally, stopping mid-step. "Not just our ships, but everything we stand for, as if we're beneath them." Claire nodded, her blonde hair catching the soft glow of the overhead lights. "And yet, we're here, aren't we? We've done things they can't even imagine." "Maybe," Daniel replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose, "but imagination doesn't win wars. Technology does. And right now, we're outgunned." "Commander." Ryan Mitchell, the ship's chief engineer, leaned forward. His dark eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What if we're not as far behind as they think?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Ryan hesitated, then tapped a few commands. Into the holoscreen embedded in the table, a series of classified files appeared, each marked with high security clearance. "These came through shortly before we left Earth," he explained. "I thought it was routine intel, but when I dug deeper..." He trailed off, letting the implications Hang in the air. Claire leaned closer, scanning the documents. Her eyes widened as she realized what she was looking at. This can't be real. Oh, it's real, Ryan confirmed. Project Aurora. Started during the Cold War. Humanity built a fleet of advanced warships designed to protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats. But they were never used. Too expensive, too risky. Instead, they were hidden away, waiting for the day we'd need them. Daniel stared at the schematics, his mind racing. The designs were unlike anything currently in use by human fleets. Sleek, angular hulls bristling with weapons. Shields capable of withstanding asteroid impacts. Engines that promised speeds far beyond anything achievable today. If these ships truly existed, they could change everything. But where are they? Daniel asked. Ryan grinned. That's the best part. They're right where we left them, cloaked beneath the surface of the moon. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of what they were discussing settled over the room like a thick fog. Humanity had been laughed at, ridiculed, and dismissed. But now they had a chance to prove everyone wrong. We'll need authorization from Earth Command, Claire said cautiously. This isn't something we can decide on our own. Daniel shook his head. By the time we get approval, it'll be too late. The Krylos won't wait. Neither will anyone else who thinks we're weak. He looked around the table, meeting each officer's gaze. If we want to earn their respect, we have to act now. One by one, they nodded. Whatever doubts they had were outweighed by the opportunity before them. For years, humanity had dreamed of taking its place among the stars. Now they had the tools to make that dream a reality. As the meeting broke up, Claire lingered behind. She watched Daniel as he stared out the viewport, lost in thought. Do you really think this will work? She asked softly. He turned to her, his expression resolute. It has to. Because if it doesn't, we'll never get another chance. Outside, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly. Somewhere within that void lay humanity's future and its greatest secret. Part 2. The journey back to the moon was tense but purposeful. The crew of the Eclipse worked tirelessly, recalibrating sensors and running simulations based on the data Ryan had uncovered. No one spoke much. The weight of what they were about to do hung heavily in the air. For years, humanity had dreamed of finding its place among the stars. Now, they were gambling everything on a secret, buried beneath layers of dust and shadow. As the Eclipse approached the far side of the moon, Daniel ordered the ship into a low orbit. The surface below was barren and lifeless, pockmarked with craters and strewn with jagged rocks. But somewhere hidden beneath that desolate landscape lay the remnants of humanity's greatest ambition, a fleet of warships built not just for exploration, but for survival. Scanning for anomalies, Claire announced from her station. Her fingers danced across the console as she analyzed the readings. There's something deep below the crust. It's faint, almost undetectable. Ryan leaned over her shoulder, his eyes narrowing at the screen. That's it, he said, his voice tinged with excitement. Those energy signatures match. The schematics, whatever's down there, is still operational. Daniel nodded. Prepare a landing party. We need to see this for ourselves. The team consisted of Daniel, Claire, Ryan, and 2 security officers, Corporal Ethan Grant and Lieutenant Marcus Cole. They boarded a shuttle and descended toward the designated coordinates. As they broke through the thin atmosphere, the moon's surface loomed closer, gray and silent. The shuttle touched down near a massive crater, its edges jagged and uneven. Stepping out onto the lunar surface, the group was struck by the eerie stillness. There was no wind, no sound, only the crunch of their boots against the fine regolith. Ahead of them, a series of metallic panels jutted out from the ground, partially buried under centuries of accumulated dust. Ryan knelt beside one, brushing away the debris to reveal a control panel etched with ancient symbols. This must be the entrance, he said, tapping a few keys on his wrist-mounted interface. "Stand back." A low hum filled the air as the panels began to shift, revealing a dark opening. Stairs led downward into the unknown, illuminated faintly by glowing strips along the walls. One by one, the team descended, their flashlights cutting through the gloom dot at the bottom. They found themselves in a vast hangar, its ceiling lost in shadows. Row after row of sleek, angular ships stretched before them, each more impressive than the last. Their hulls gleamed despite centuries of neglect, polished surfaces reflecting the dim light. Massive engines lined their backs, and weapons bristled along their sides like thorns. In the center of the hangar stood a command platform, surrounded by dormant consoles and holographic displays. Claire stepped forward, her breath catching in her throat. She reached out to touch one of the ships, her gloved hand trembling slightly. This changes everything," she whispered. Ryan nodded, already inspecting the nearest vessel. "These designs are incredible. Look at the shield generators, they're decades ahead of anything we've got now. And these plasma cannons." He trailed off, shaking his head in disbelief. "If we can get these ships online, we'll have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy," Marcus whistled softly. "No wonder they kept this hidden. Imagine the chaos if someone like the Krylos found out about this." Daniel walked to the command platform, his boots echoing against the metal floor. He pressed a button on one of the consoles, and the entire hangar came alive. Lights flickered on, bathing the ships in a warm glow. Holograms sprang to life, displaying status reports and diagnostic scans. Most of the vessels were intact, though some required minor repairs. The systems, however, were fully functional. "It's like they knew we'd need this someday," Claire murmured, staring at the insignia etched into the wall, a phoenix rising from flames, a symbol of rebirth. Ethan crossed his arms, frowning. Or maybe they just didn't trust anyone else with it. This kind of power could start a war. Daniel turned to face his team. "Maybe so. But right now, it's our best shot at proving humanity belongs here. At showing the galaxy we're not just some primitive species to be laughed at." Ryan grinned. "Let's wake up the fleet then." Activating the ships wasn't easy. The systems were old, designed for a time when technology was simpler. But Ryan and Claire worked tirelessly, deciphering codes and rerouting power supplies. By the end of the day, the first ship roared to life, its engines humming with barely contained energy. The others followed soon after, until the entire hangar vibrated with the promise of untapped potential. Back aboard the Eclipse, the news spread quickly. The crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces alight with hope and determination. For the first time since the humiliating encounter with the Krylos, they felt a sense of pride. Humanity wasn't weak, it was resilient. And now it had the tools to prove it. But as the celebrations began, Daniel couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Somewhere out there, the Krylos and their allies were watching. They wouldn't take kindly to humanity's sudden rise. War was inevitable, and the stakes had never been higher. Still, as he looked out at the sea of determined faces, Daniel allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. Part 3, the galaxy was a place of whispers, and news traveled fast. Within hours of the Phoenix Armada's activation, reports began to circulate among the stars. At first, it was just rumors, fragmented pieces of information that no one took seriously. A human fleet hidden beneath the moon? Advanced warships capable of rivaling even the Krylos might. It sounded like science fiction, a tale spun by overzealous storytellers. But then came the images. Grainy footage captured by surveillance drones near Earth's orbit showed sleek vessels emerging from the shadows of the lunar surface. Their angular designs and glowing engines were unlike anything seen before. The footage spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the galaxy. By the time the first official transmission arrived, The entire Interstellar Council was abuzz with speculation. Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of the eclipse, watching as his crew prepared for what would be humanity's defining moment. The newly awakened Phoenix Armada had been deployed into formation, its ships shimmering against the blackness of space. Each vessel carried weapons powerful enough to devastate entire planets, yet they remained silent, waiting for orders. This wasn't just about showing strength, it was about sending a message. Are we ready? Daniel asked, glancing at Claire Bennett, who sat at her station monitoring communications. She nodded, her hands steady on the controls. All systems are online. We're broadcasting to the Galactic Council now. The holographic screen flickered to life, displaying the faces of ambassadors from across the galaxy. Some looked intrigued, others skeptical. Ambassador Zoran of the Krylos Confederacy stared coldly at the camera, his 6 glowing eyes narrowed in suspicion. Beside him, representatives from various species whispered urgently, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of disbelief and curiosity. Daniel stepped forward, standing tall as the hologram of his image projected across the council chamber. His voice was calm but firm, carrying an authority that demanded attention. "You laughed at us," he began, his words cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "You dismissed us as insignificant, unworthy of joining your ranks. But now we stand before you, not as beggars seeking acceptance, but as equals demanding respect." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on Daniel. He continued, his tone unwavering. "For years, humanity has worked tirelessly to reach the stars. We've built colonies, explored uncharted territories, and pushed the boundaries of science. Yet you mocked our efforts, calling us primitive. Well, let me show you how wrong you were." At his signal, Claire activated a secondary feed, displaying live footage of the Phoenix Armada. The sight was breathtaking, a fleet of advanced warships moving in perfect synchronization, their shields shimmering with energy. Weapon systems powered up, casting eerie blue and red glows across their hulls. The sheer scale of the Armada left many ambassadors speechless. Zoran broke the silence, his voice dripping with disdain. "And what do you intend to do with this? Toy fleet? Impose yourselves on the galaxy?" Daniel shook his head. "No, we don't seek conquest or domination. What we want is simple: recognition, respect, a seat at the table where decisions about the future of the galaxy are made. If you refuse to grant us that, then we will defend ourselves and anyone else who shares our values." The room erupted into chaos. Some ambassadors applauded, while others shouted protests. Among those watching closely was Elena Vasquez, a journalist known for her fearless reporting. She had covered countless diplomatic events, but nothing compared to this. As she recorded the scene, her mind raced with questions. Who were these humans, really? And what did their sudden rise mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Back aboard the Eclipse, the tension was palpable. The crew waited anxiously for the Council's response, knowing that their actions could spark either peace or war. Ryan Mitchell monitored the ship's systems, ensuring everything was functioning perfectly. Marcus Cole paced the bridge, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. Even Corporal Ethan Grant, usually stoic, couldn't hide his nervous energy. "They'll come after us," Marcus said finally, breaking the silence. "The Krylos won't take this lying down." Daniel nodded. "I know. But if they do, we'll be ready." Claire turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think they'll listen, or are we just delaying the inevitable?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted, "but we had to try. Humanity deserves a chance to prove itself, not because we're perfect, but because we're willing to fight for what's right." As the hours passed, the Council deliberated behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the Phoenix Armada remained in position, a silent reminder of humanity's newfound resolve. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species admired humanity's boldness, seeing them as potential allies. Others viewed them as a threat, fearing the implications of such advanced technology in the hands of a relatively young civilization. Among those watching was Lyra, a Quarren engineer stationed aboard a research vessel near Jupiter. Her people had long suffered under the oppressive rule of the Krylos, and she felt a flicker of hope as she studied the footage of the Phoenix Armada. Perhaps, just perhaps, humanity could become the ally the Quarren desperately needed. For now, though, the galaxy held its breath. The laughter had stopped, replaced by uncertainty and unease. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, not with apologies or pleas, but with defiance. Whether it led to peace or conflict remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the stars would never look at Earth the same way again. Part 4. The galaxy was never quiet for long. News of humanity's Phoenix Armada spread like wildfire, igniting both admiration and fear among the stars. For some species, it was a beacon of hope, a sign that even the smallest voices could rise against oppression. For others, particularly the Krylos Confederacy, it was a direct challenge to their dominance. General Vrax, the Krylos military leader, watched the footage of the Armada with growing anger. His 6 eyes glowed brighter. With each passing second, a clear sign of his fury. "This cannot stand," he growled, slamming his fist onto the conference table. The other Krylos commanders flinched but said nothing. They knew better than to interrupt him when he was in this mood. Humanity thinks they can parade their toys and demand respect. "We will show them what true power looks like," Vrax ordered. An immediate strike against the Phoenix Armada. It wasn't meant to destroy yet. Instead, it was a test. He wanted to see if humanity's newfound fleet was as formidable as it appeared, or if it was merely a bluff. A small but deadly squadron of Krylos cruisers set course for Saturn's rings, where the humans had positioned themselves after their grand announcement. On board the Eclipse, alarms blared as sensors detected the incoming ships. Claire rushed to her station, her fingers flying over the controls. "We've got multiple bogies approaching fast," she reported, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "They're Krylos. Looks like they're not here to talk." Daniel clenched, his jaw staring at the tactical display. The enemy ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything Earth had built before Project Aurora. But the Phoenix Armada wasn't just any fleet, it was humanity's last line of defense. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Ryan, make sure all systems are online. Marcus, prep the fighters. We won't let them push us around." The crew sprang into action. Ryan double-checked the energy shields, ensuring they could withstand whatever the Krylos threw at them. Ethan distributed weapons to the security teams, while Marcus climbed into the cockpit of one of the smaller fighter craft. These agile ships were designed for quick strikes and evasive maneuvers, perfect for taking on larger vessels. As the Krylos squadron entered range, the battle began. Bright beams of plasma erupted from their cannons, slicing through space toward the human fleet. The Phoenix Armada S-shields absorbed most of the hits, but a few smaller ships took damage. Explosions lit up the darkness as debris floated away from crippled vessels. Marcus gritted his teeth, guiding his fighter through the chaos. His training kicked in as he dodged incoming fire, weaving between the massive cruisers. "Come on," he muttered under his breath, locking onto one of the Krylos ships. With a press of a button, he unleashed a volley of missiles, striking the cruiser's engines. Flames burst from its hull as it slowed, leaving it vulnerable to follow-up attacks. On the Eclipse, Daniel coordinated the defense. "Focus fire on their lead ship," he commanded. The largest vessel in the Krylos formation was hammering the human fleet with relentless salvos. If they could take it out, the rest might retreat. Claire relayed the order, and several of the Phoenix Armada's capital ships turned their attention to the target. Their plasma cannons charged, glowing brighter with each passing second. When they fired, the combined blast tore through the Krylos cruiser's shields and ripped apart its hull. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the battlefield, but the victory came at a cost. One of the human ships, the Aurora Blade, had taken heavy damage during the exchange. Its engines sputtered as it drifted out of formation, smoke pouring from its damaged sections. Inside, the crew scrambled to contain the fires, but it was clear the ship wouldn't last much longer. "Marcus," Daniel called over the comms, "we need you to cover the Blade. Get its crew to safety." Without hesitation, Marcus swung his fighter around, heading toward the stricken vessel. Enemy fire streaked past him, narrowly missing his wings. He activated his thrusters, pushing the fighter to its limits as he approached the Blade. "This is Cole," he said into the comms. "I'm here. Start evacuating your people." Dozens of escape pods launched from the dying ship, streaking toward safer zones. Marcus stayed close, drawing fire away from the pods. His fighter shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed its wing, but he didn't falter. "Almost there," he muttered, watching the last pod detach and speed away. Meanwhile, the tide of the battle shifted. The remaining Krylos ships realized they were outnumbered and outgunned. Their formations broke apart as they tried to retreat, but the Phoenix Armada pursued them relentlessly. Plasma cannons fired in unison, disabling another cruiser and forcing the survivors to flee entirely. When the dust settled, the human fleet regrouped. The Aurora Blade was gone, lost to the void, but the rest of the Armada remained intact. Cheers erupted across the comms as the crew celebrated their hard-won victory. For the first time, humanity had faced the Krylos and won. Later, aboard the Eclipse, Daniel addressed the crew. "Today we proved something important," he said, his voice carrying pride and determination. "We showed the galaxy that we're not afraid to fight for what's ours. But this is only the beginning. The Krylos won't stop. They'll come back stronger next time." Claire nodded, her expression somber. "We need to prepare, and we need allies." "Fighting alone won't be enough," Daniel agreed. "Elena Vasquez has been reaching out to other species. Maybe it's time we started building bridges instead of walls." In the hangar bay, Marcus stood beside his fighter, inspecting the damage. Lyra, the Koran engineer who had been observing the battle remotely, contacted him via hologram. Her soft voice carried gratitude. "You saved those people," she said. "Your bravery gives us hope." Marcus smiled faintly. "It's not over yet. But if we work together, maybe we can make a difference." As the Phoenix Armada regrouped and repaired, the galaxy watched. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with the strongest powers in the stars. War was coming, but so was the chance to forge new alliances. For now, the humans had earned a moment of peace and the respect of those who once doubted them. Part 5. Elena Vasquez had always believed in the power of stories. As a journalist, she knew that words could change minds, shift perspectives, and even rewrite history. But now, as she traveled across the galaxy aboard her small vessel, Messenger Asterisk, she realized that action spoke louder than any article or broadcast. Humanity's victory against the Krylos squadron near Saturn's rings had sent shockwaves through the stars. Some species admired Earth's courage. Others feared its newfound strength. Elena was determined to find allies who shared humanity's vision, a vision of peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. Her first stop was the Koran homeworld, nestled within the icy rings of a distant gas giant. The Koran were a peaceful race, their translucent bodies shimmering like liquid crystal under the dim light of their dying sun. For centuries, they had endured oppression at the hands of the Krylos Confederacy, forced to surrender resources and technology to maintain their fragile independence. When Elena arrived, she was greeted by Elder Taven, the leader of the Koran Council. "Your people have shown great bravery," Taven said, his voice soft but filled with emotion. His large, luminous eyes studied Elena intently. "But bravery alone will not win this war. Elena nodded, understanding the weight of his words. That's why I'm here. Humanity doesn't want to fight alone. We believe in standing together, stronger species helping weaker ones, united against tyranny. Taven exchanged glances with the other council members before speaking again. We are not warriors, Miss Vasquez. Our strength lies in knowledge, not weapons. But, he paused, considering his next words carefully. If your cause is just, we may be able to offer something more valuable than soldiers. Over the following days, Elena worked closely with Lyra, the Quarren engineer who had reached out to Marcus Cole during the battle near Saturn. Together, they toured the Quarren research facilities, marveling at the advanced technologies hidden beneath the planet's frozen surface. The Quarren had developed energy-efficient reactors, cloaking devices capable of hiding entire fleets, and medical advancements far beyond anything humanity possessed. This could give you an edge, Lyra explained, showing Elena a prototype shield generator. It's lighter and more durable than what you're currently using. If we can mass-produce it for your fleet, it would save lives, Elena finished, her heart racing with excitement. She couldn't wait to share this discovery with Daniel Harper and the rest of the Phoenix Armada. With Quarren tech integrated into their ships, humanity's chances of survival would skyrocket. Meanwhile, back aboard the Eclipse, tensions ran high. The crew worked around the clock repairing damaged vessels and upgrading systems based on data collected during the skirmish with the Krylos. Ryan Mitchell spent hours in the engineering bay, poring over schematics and running simulations. He barely slept, driven by the knowledge that every improvement could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Claire Bennett assisted him whenever she could, though her primary focus remained on communications. She monitored transmissions from across the galaxy, searching for signs of Krylos activity. So far, there had been no direct retaliation, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. The silence felt ominous, like the calm before a storm. One evening, as the two worked side by side, Claire broke the quiet. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "I mean, forming alliances, fighting back. What if we're just making things worse?" Ryan stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Worse how? What if we start another galactic war? Or what if we alienate the species that don't want to pick sides? Not everyone wants to fight." Ryan sighed, leaning against the console. "You're right, it's complicated. But sitting back and doing nothing isn't an option either. The Krylos aren't going to stop until they've crushed us, or until we prove we're too strong to mess with." Before Claire could respond, an alert flashed on her screen. "Incoming message," she announced, straightening up. "It's Elena." Moments later, Elena's holographic image appeared in the center of the room. Her face was flushed with excitement, her eyes sparkling. "You're not going to believe this," she began without preamble. "The Quarren are willing to help. They've got tech that'll make our ships faster, stronger, and harder to hit. And they're sending engineers to assist with the upgrades." Ryan grinned. "That's exactly what we need." Daniel joined them shortly after, listening intently as Elena outlined the details of the alliance. By the end of the transmission, his expression was one of cautious optimism. "This changes everything," he said. "With the Quarren on our side, we might actually stand a chance." The integration process began immediately. Teams of Quarren engineers arrived aboard the Phoenix Armada, working alongside human crews to install new systems and test prototypes. Lyra personally oversaw the modifications to the flagship, forming a close bond with Marcus Cole in the process. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their shared determination to protect the innocent and resist oppression. As the days passed, the fleet grew stronger, not just technologically, but emotionally. The presence of the Quarren reminded everyone aboard the Eclipse that they weren't alone. Other species, inspired by humanity's defiance, began reaching out as well. A group of Nomari traders offered to supply food and medical supplies. The Valens, a nomadic race known for their stealth tactics, volunteered pilots to train human fighter squadrons. Slowly but surely, a coalition was forming, yet not all reactions were positive. News of the growing alliance angered General Vrax and his Krylos forces. To them, humanity's rise represented a direct threat to their dominance. In secret meetings, Vrax plotted his next move, vowing to crush the upstart humans once and for all. They think they're untouchable, he snarled to his advisors. We'll show them just how wrong they are. Across the galaxy, whispers of an impending attack spread. Spies reported unusual movements among the Krylos fleets, suggesting a massive assault was being planned. Daniel received warnings from sympathetic ambassadors, urging him to prepare for the worst. We knew this day would come, Daniel told his officers during a briefing. The Krylos won't stop until we're destroyed, or until they are. Either way, we have to be ready. The crew nodded grimly. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as humans, but as part of something greater. The stars had underestimated Earth once. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Part 6. The Phoenix Armada was stronger than ever, its ships gleaming with new upgrades provided by the Quarren. Energy shields pulsed with a faint blue glow, and engines hummed with unparalleled efficiency. Morale among the crew was high. They felt invincible, ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them. But beneath the surface of confidence and camaraderie, cracks were beginning to form. Admiral Gregory Hayes had always been a man of caution. Back on Earth, he commanded the planet's defense forces, a role that required him to think about worst-case scenarios. When news of the alliance with the Quarren reached him, his unease deepened. He paced the command center in Houston, staring at holographic projections of the Phoenix Armada. The fleet was impressive, no doubt, but it also represented a gamble one he wasn't sure humanity could afford to take. They're playing with fire, Hayes muttered to himself, shaking his head. His aide, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks, stood nearby, watching him with concern. She had served under Hayes for years and knew how much he valued stability over risk. "Sir?" she asked cautiously. "Do you think Captain Harper is overstepping?" Hayes stopped pacing and turned to her. "It's not just Harper. It's all of them, the engineers, the diplomats, even Vasquez. They're building alliances, upgrading weapons, preparing for war. What happens if we lose? Do they realize what's at stake here?" Samantha hesitated before responding. "With respect, sir, isn't it better to fight back than to wait for the Krylos to destroy us?" Hayes sighed heavily. "That's the thing they don't understand. War isn't just about winning or losing. It's about consequences. If we fail, Earth will be vulnerable. And if we win—" He trailed off, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If we win, we might burn the galaxy down trying." Unbeknownst to the crew of the Eclipse, Hayes had already made contact with the Krylos. Through secret channels, he sent encrypted messages to General Vrax, offering information about the Phoenix Armada's weaknesses in exchange for protection. He didn't trust the Krylos, how could anyone? But he saw them as the lesser of two evils. Better to negotiate with a known enemy than to gamble humanity's future on an untested coalition. Vrax received the message with interest. The human Admiral's betrayal was unexpected but welcome. With Hayes' intel, the Krylos could strike at the heart of the Phoenix Armada and dismantle humanity's newfound strength. Still, Vrax remained cautious. Humans were unpredictable, and Hayes might have ulterior motives. For now he decided to play along, feeding the Admiral false assurances while planning his next move. Back aboard the Eclipse, Elena Vasquez returned from her travels, bringing updates on the growing coalition. She gathered the senior officers. In the briefing room, her expression bright with optimism. "We've got more species joining us," she announced, pulling up a star map on the holoscreen. The Nomori are sending supply ships, and the Valens have started training our pilots. Even the Zenari, who usually stay neutral, have agreed to provide medical support. Daniel nodded, pleased with the progress. Good work, Elena. Every ally helps. Claire, however, noticed something off in Elena's demeanor. Her smile seemed forced, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the display. Is everything okay? Claire asked gently. Elena hesitated, then shook her head. Not entirely. I intercepted some transmissions while I was out there. Someone's leaking information about our fleet to the Krylos. The room fell silent. Marcus leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Are you sure? Positive, Elena replied. I traced the signal back to Earth. Whoever's doing this knows exactly what they're risking. Daniel clenched his fists, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. This isn't just sabotage, it's treason. We need to find out who's behind it before it's too late. Ryan spoke up, his voice grim. If the Krylos know our weaknesses, they'll exploit them. We can't let that happen. Later that night, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. She sat in her quarters, reviewing encrypted logs from Earth Command. Something about Admiral Hayes' recent communications struck her as suspicious. Why would he send so many updates about the Armada's status without asking for input? And why had he suddenly become so critical of their strategies? Her suspicions grew when she discovered a series of flagged messages hidden deep within the system. Each one contained detailed schematics of the fleet's upgrades, along with notes about potential vulnerabilities. The sender's signature matched Hayes' credentials. Claire's heart raced as she pieced it together. Hayes wasn't just doubting their mission, he was actively working against them. She grabbed her datapad and rushed to Daniel's quarters, knocking urgently on the door. When Daniel opened it, his expression shifted from surprise to concern. What is it? It's Hayes, Claire blurted out, holding up the datapad. He's been leaking information to the Krylos. He betrayed us. Daniel took the device, scrolling through the evidence. His jaw tightened as he absorbed the implications. We need to confront him. The next day, Daniel transmitted a secure call to Earth Command, demanding an immediate meeting with Hayes. When the Admiral appeared on screen, his face was unreadable, though sweat beaded on his forehead. Captain Harper, Hayes began. His tone clipped. What's this about? You tell me, Daniel shot back, activating the holoscreen to display the incriminating messages. Why are you helping the Krylos, Hayes? Do you have any idea what you've done? Hayes froze, his composure crumbling. For a moment he said nothing, then slumped into his chair. You don't understand, he whispered. I did it to protect Earth, to save us from ourselves. To save us? Daniel repeated, incredulous. By handing our secrets to the enemy, you've put every person on this ship and on Earth at risk. Hayes looked away, shame written across his features. I thought they'd spare us. That if we showed weakness, they'd leave us alone. But now, his voice cracked. Now I see I was wrong. There was no forgiveness in Daniel's eyes. You'll stand trial for this, Hayes. Until then, consider yourself relieved of duty. As the transmission ended, the weight of Hayes' betrayal settled over the crew. Trust had been broken, and fear lingered in its place. But amidst the anger and uncertainty, there was also resolve. Humanity had faced betrayal before, both from within and without. This wouldn't stop them, not when so much was at stake. We'll deal with Hayes later, Daniel told his officers. Right now, we focus on staying alive. If the Krylos think they can use his information to break us, they're dead wrong. The crew nodded, steeling themselves for what lay ahead. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity would crumble under pressure or rise above it. Part 7. The Krylos fleet moved like a storm, vast and unstoppable. General Vrack stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as hundreds of cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels assembled near Jupiter's orbit. The humans had proven themselves. Dangerous more so than he had anticipated, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned. With Admiral Hayes' betrayal providing critical intel, Vrax believed victory was within reach. He would crush the Phoenix Armada and send a message to the galaxy. No one defied the Krylos and lived to tell the tale. On board the Eclipse, Daniel Harper felt the tension in every corner of the ship. The crew worked tirelessly, preparing for what they knew would be their greatest challenge yet. Ryan Mitchell double-checked the upgrades provided by the Quarren, ensuring that every system was functioning at peak efficiency. Claire Bennett monitored incoming data, her eyes scanning for any sign of the enemy fleet. Marcus Cole led drills. With the fighter squadrons, pushing them harder than ever before, no one spoke much. There wasn't time for idle chatter. The stakes were too high. "They're coming," Claire announced finally, breaking the silence on the bridge. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the controls. Scanners show a massive formation approaching from the outer rings. Daniel nodded, his expression grim. Battle stations, everyone knows their roles. The Phoenix Armada deployed into position, its ships forming a protective barrier around the Eclipse. Energy shields shimmered to life, glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Plasma cannons charged, humming with barely contained power. For all their preparation, the humans knew this battle would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. When the Krylos fleet arrived, it was overwhelming. Their ships stretched across the horizon, blotting out the light of distant stars. Bright beams of plasma erupted from their cannons, slicing through space toward the human defenders. The Phoenix Armada absorbed the initial barrage, its shields holding firm, but the sheer scale of the assault was staggering. Marcus Cole launched his fighter into the fray, weaving between enemy ships with practiced skill. His heart pounded as he locked onto a cruiser, firing a volley of missiles that struck its engines. Flames erupted from the hull, sending debris spiraling into the void. But there was no time to celebrate. Another Krylos vessel appeared behind him, its weapons trained directly on his craft. "Cole, break left," came a voice over the comms. It was Lyra, coordinating tactics from the Eclipse. Marcus obeyed instinctively, pulling his fighter into a sharp turn just as a plasma bolt seared past his wing. He returned fire, disabling the enemy ship before diving back into the chaos. Back aboard the Eclipse, Daniel coordinated the defense, his voice cutting through the noise. "Focus fire on their lead destroyer. Take out their command structure." Claire relayed the order, and several capital ships turned their attention to the target. Their combined firepower tore through the Krylos shields, crippling the destroyer in a spectacular explosion. Cheers erupted briefly among the crew, but the celebration was short-lived. More enemy ships surged forward, filling the gap left by their fallen comrades. Ryan worked feverishly in the engineering bay, rerouting power to damaged systems and reinforcing failing shields. Sweat dripped from his brow as alarms blared around him. "We're holding steady," he reported over the comms. "But we can't keep this up forever." As the battle raged, the tide began to shift. The Krylos pressed their advantage, targeting weaker ships in the human fleet. One by one, smaller vessels succumbed to relentless fire, their crews abandoning ship and escape pods. Among the casualties was the Aegis Dawn, a key component of the Armada's defensive line. Its loss created a gap that the Krylos exploited. Pushing deeper into the formation, "We're losing ground," Claire shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "They're breaking through." Daniel clenched his fists, his mind racing. There had to be a way to turn the tide. Then he remembered something Ryan had mentioned during the upgrades, a prototype weapon developed by the Quarren. A quantum disruptor, capable of collapsing entire fleets. It was untested, risky, and potentially catastrophic if used incorrectly. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "Ryan, activate the disruptor," Daniel ordered. Now, Ryan hesitated. "Captain, if we use that, It could destabilize the entire region. We might take out our own ships along with theirs. I know, Daniel replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. But if we don't, we're finished anyway. Do it. Ryan nodded reluctantly and began the activation sequence. Meanwhile, Daniel addressed the fleet. All ships, fall back to designated coordinates. Prepare for emergency maneuvers. The orders spread quickly, and the surviving vessels retreated, creating distance between themselves and the advancing Krylos. As the enemy fleet closed in, unaware of the danger ahead, Ryan gave the final command. Firing disruptor. Now, a pulse of energy rippled outward from the eclipse, invisible but devastating. The Krylos ships shuddered violently as their systems overloaded, shields collapsing and engines failing. Dozens of cruisers exploded in fiery bursts, while others drifted helplessly, powerless to continue the fight. The once mighty fleet was reduced to chaos in seconds. Amidst the destruction, Marcus noticed a lone Krylos dreadnought still operational. Its massive frame loomed large, weapons charging for a final devastating strike. If it fired, it could obliterate the retreating human fleet. "This is Cole," he said over the comms, his voice calm despite the fear clawing at his chest. "I'm going in." Before anyone could stop him, Marcus piloted his fighter straight toward the dreadnought. Enemy fire streaked past him, narrowly missing his wings as he closed the distance. With precision born of desperation, he targeted the ship's core reactor, unleashing a barrage of missiles that struck true. The dreadnought erupted in a blinding explosion, the shockwave rocking his fighter violently. "Marcus!" Claire screamed, her voice breaking. "Respond!" For a moment, there was only static. Then, faintly, Marcus' voice came through. "I'm okay, barely." Despite the damage to his ship, he managed to limp back to the fleet, greeted by cheers from the exhausted crew. When the dust settled, the Krylos forces were in disarray. What remained of their fleet retreated, leaving behind a graveyard of shattered ships and lost lives. The Phoenix Armada regrouped, battered but victorious, yet the cost had been immense. Too many ships were gone, too many friends lost. Daniel stood on the bridge, staring at the wreckage floating silently in the void. He felt no joy, only sorrow. War was never clean, never simple. But they had survived for now. "We did it," Claire said softly. Placing a hand on his shoulder, Daniel nodded, his voice heavy with emotion. "Yeah, but at what cost?" Outside, the stars burned brightly, indifferent to the struggles of those who sought to claim them. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had proven itself willing to pay any price to secure its place among the stars. But the scars of this battle would linger, a reminder of the sacrifices made and the battles yet to come. Part 8. The aftermath of the battle was a somber affair. The Phoenix Armada drifted silently through space, its ships battered but intact. Crews worked tirelessly to repair damage, salvage supplies from destroyed vessels, and tend to the wounded. The victory had come at a steep price. Ships lost, lives ended, dreams shattered. Yet amidst the grief, there was also pride. Humanity had stood against overwhelming odds and prevailed. They had earned the right to call themselves equals among the stars. On board the Eclipse, Daniel Harper stood in the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of space. His reflection in the glass showed a man weighed down by responsibility, his face lined with fatigue. Behind him, Claire approached quietly, her steps soft against the metal floor. She didn't speak at first, simply standing beside him as they both gazed into the void. "We did what we had to do," she said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was gentle, almost hesitant. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, but it doesn't feel like enough." "It never does," Claire replied. "War, it changes people. It takes pieces of you that you can't get back." He glanced at her, seeing the same weariness in her eyes that he felt in his own heart. "Do you think it was worth it?" All the sacrifices, all the pain? She hesitated before answering. I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. But I do know this: we gave them a reason to respect us, to see us as more than just some primitive species clinging to a rock in the middle of nowhere. Daniel managed a faint smile. That's something, I guess. News of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. The Krylos' defeat stunned many species who had assumed humanity's rise would be short-lived. Some saw the humans as heroes, brave defenders of the weak. Others viewed them with suspicion, wondering how long their newfound strength would last. Among those watching closely was Elena Vesquez, whose reports chronicled every moment of the conflict. Her words carried weight, shaping public opinion and inspiring hope in places where despair had taken root. In the days following the battle, ambassadors from various species reached out to humanity, seeking alliances or offering aid. The Quarren sent additional engineers to help repair the fleet, while the Namari delivered much-needed supplies. Even the Zenari, known for their neutrality, offered medical assistance to treat the injured. Slowly but surely, the coalition grew. Stronger, united not just by necessity, but by shared values. Elena traveled to the Galactic Council once again, this time representing humanity alongside Daniel Harper. When they entered the chamber, the atmosphere was different. No longer were they met with laughter or disdain. Instead, there was curiosity and respect. As Daniel addressed the assembly, his voice carried authority tempered by humility. We didn't ask for this fight, he began, his words steady and clear. But when it came, we stood our ground. Not because we wanted power or glory, but because we believe in justice, in fairness, in giving everyone a chance to thrive, no matter how small or weak they may seem. His speech resonated deeply with many ambassadors, particularly those who had suffered under the Krylos' rule. Elder Taven of the Quarren rose to speak, his luminous eyes glowing softly. Humanity has shown courage and compassion, he said, his voice carrying warmth. They have proven themselves worthy allies and leaders. The vote to grant humanity full membership in the Interstellar Council passed unanimously. For the first time, Earth had a seat at the table where decisions about the future of the galaxy were made. It was a monumental achievement, one that marked the beginning of a new era. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew celebrated quietly. There was laughter, but also tears for those they had lost and for the battles yet to come. Marcus Cole sat with Lyra in the mess hall, sharing stories about their respective worlds. Despite their differences, they found comfort in each other's company, a reminder that even in the darkest times, connections could be forged. Ryan Mitchell worked late into the night, fine-tuning the upgrades to the fleet. He knew the Krylos wouldn't stay quiet forever. Sooner or later, they would regroup and return, angrier and more determined than ever. Until then, humanity needed to be ready. Claire stayed on the bridge, monitoring distant stars for any sign of trouble. She thought about Marcus' sacrifice during the battle, risking everything to save the fleet. It reminded her of why they fought, not for glory or revenge, but to protect what mattered most: home, family, freedom. As dawn broke over the horizon of a nearby planet, casting golden light across the ship's windows, Daniel joined Claire on the bridge. Together, they watched the sunrise, a symbol of renewal and possibility. What happens now? Claire asked softly. Daniel sighed, leaning against the railing. Everything ahead of them was uncertain: the challenges, the dangers, the unknowns. But one thing was clear: humanity had found its place among the stars. And they weren't going anywhere. We keep moving forward, he said finally, one step at a time. Outside, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly. Somewhere within that infinite expanse lay new challenges, new adventures, new battles to fight. But for now, humanity had earned its moment of peace, a chance to heal, to grow, to dream. The stars belonged to no one, but perhaps just perhaps they could belong to everyone.